Hi, I'm Naveen Day. This is Forum Daily West. Here are some of the top stories we've been following. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre vows to use the notwithstanding clause to ensure multiple murderers die in prison. Plus, the Alberta government announced $100 million in funding for the University of Alberta's Biological Sciences building. Fires in West Lethbridge cause $1.75 million in damage and destroy 2 homes. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Naveen Day, filling in for Jeanette Roche. U.S. President Donald Trump says he's looking at something to help the auto sector with his hefty tariffs. When Trump announced his 25% auto tariffs last month, he described them as permanent. But now he's suggesting that he might temporarily exempt the auto industry from tariffs to give car makers time to adjust their supply chains. And the Trump administration announced Friday that it was exempting imported smartphones, laptops, and other electronics from reciprocal tariffs. But then Sunday, Trump wanted to clear things up. Posting to his X account, he said, quote, "There was no tariff exemption announced on Friday." When asked by reporters on this matter, Trump had this to say.
What about any Apple products, other cell phones?
Look, I'm a very flexible person. I don't change my mind, but I'm flexible. And you have to be. You just can't have a wall and you'll only go. No, sometimes you have to go around it, under it, or above it. There'll be maybe things coming up. I speak to Tim Cook. I helped Tim Cook recently, and that whole business. I don't want to hurt anybody, but the end result is we're going to get to the position of greatness for our country. We're the greatest economic power in the world if we're smart. If we're not smart, we're going to hurt our country very badly.
The updated guidance, which cites a presidential memorandum issued Friday, excluded the products from Trump's 125% China tariff and his baseline 10% global tariff on some countries. They apply to goods that left a warehouse as of April the 5th. The new move may ease the blow for consumers while giving a boost to electronics giants such as Apple and Samsung. Right now, if you sell your home in Canada, the profit from that sale is exempt from the capital gains tax. But even though it's exempt, you must still report it to the Canada Revenue Agency. That was mandated by the federal government back in 2016. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation, however, is concerned that that exemption might change in the future and wants all party leaders to say publicly whether they're for it or against it. Chris Sims is the Alberta director for the CTF, and she joins me now. So, Chris, why is the CTF raising this concern now?
What we're concerned about here is that the Liberal government has put out a lot of feelers. They've sent out an awful lot of signals that they want to create a new home equity tax, okay? And what that would do is that would then tax people on the sale of their nest egg. And we know that a lot of folks are counting on the sale of their home when they get older to pay for their essentials that they're going to need when they're an older person. And so that would be a massive hit, especially to the baby boomer generation. And so we're really trying to flag this down as a concern. Also, if you're trying to make houses more affordable, taxes will not make things more affordable. Because of course, then if you nail people with a home equity tax on the sale of their home, they're likely just going to add that amount to the listing price. So there we go. Makes houses cost more.
So how does this impact the average Canadian?
Some home equity taxes would be based on a percentage as to how much you sold it for. So we did have an old home equity tax calculator, but because prices have changed so much over the years, it really does fluctuate. But in many cases, I've read a lot of these reports, we're talking anywhere around $10,000, $20,000, depending on the value of the house. Say if you bought in the 1980s or the 90s and you sold now and you bought in a place like goodness around Vancouver, like a suburb around Vancouver, or one of those areas of the 905 around Toronto, you're looking at a really hefty home equity tax bill.
Wow, yeah, I can't even imagine. So, Chris, what do you want to hear from the party leaders?
We want every party leader to say, if I am elected prime minister, I will get rid of the reporting requirement on the sale of your primary residence, your house, with the CRA. I'm going to axe that directly from the documents. No more having to tell the federal government if and when you sold your house and how much money you made on it. That is not going to be here.
That was Chris Sims, Alberta Director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, joining us from Lethbridge. Liberal leader Mark Carney is pledging to help the Canadian defence industry grow. Speaking on the campaign trail in Dorval, Quebec today, Carney said a Made in Canada approach is needed as the priorities of the United States may have shifted. Carney says the Liberal plan will include something they've dubbed Borealis.
The Bureau of Research, Engineering, and Advanced Leadership in Innovation and Science. Borealis will advance cutting-edge research in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and other frontier technologies essential to safeguarding Canadian sovereignty. Because today, defense is not only about manpower, it's about brainpower. Borealis will drive innovation in terms of security technologies, enhance our capacity to deter threats, and strengthen Canada's technological superiority, all helping to ensure Canadian safety and Canada's sovereignty for decades to come.
Carney and the other federal leaders are also looking ahead to this week's televised debates in Montreal. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is promising to do something no federal government has ever done before. Speaking in Montreal, Poilievre says a Conservative government would use the notwithstanding clause in the Charter of Rights to implement some of his tough on crime agenda. Poilievre plans to reverse a Supreme Court ruling.
Now, Parliament has the legitimate constitutional authority and the moral duty to correct this injustice and restore common sense sentencing with no more discounts for multiple murderers. Every life matters, and someone who takes multiple lives should be held accountable for each one. That's why I'm announcing today a Conservative government will reintroduce and pass the law that empowered judges to impose consecutive sentences for killers convicted of multiple murders. The worst mass murderers should never be allowed back on our streets. For them, a life sentence should mean what it says, a life sentence. They should only come out in a box.
Poilievre says judges should once again have the option of handing down consecutive sentences, especially to convicted mass murderers. Meanwhile, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh warned that invoking the notwithstanding clause is becoming more commonplace, while Mark Carney says Poilievre's plan to use the notwithstanding clause as part of his tough on crime plan is, quote, a slippery slope.
And I'm concerned, and I mentioned this before, I'm concerned with the fact that it's being used more and more. Charter rights, human rights should not be things that we are willing to ignore or put to the side. And I'm worried that it's becoming more and more commonplace that the notwithstanding clause is being used.
The politicizing certain issues with respect to fundamental rights is a slippery slope. Being tough on crime and being tough starts with being smart on crime. And it includes being tough on guns and gun violence.
And speaking of crime, violent crime in Canada is on the rise, and gun laws seem to target legal gun owners over criminals. Rick Blakely is the president of the Lethbridge Fish and Game Association and the range operator of Lethbridge's sport shooting facility. He gives us some thoughts on how gun laws are impacting law-abiding citizens.
The stats say that licensed gun owners are less than 1%, and that crime has increased dramatically. And I forget the stat. I mean, it's a fairly large. If you look at the graph, it's going up quite considerably because of the lack of control at the border. Guns are coming across the border. They're coming in from Europe. The gangs are growing in size and in power. Citizens are being vilified, and crimes, criminals and gangs are being encouraged, if you ask me. There seems to be no punishment for criminal activity, especially violent criminal activity. It's counterintuitive. It really is. It doesn't make sense.
Back to the campaign trail now. Just one day earlier in Ottawa, Pierre Poilievre promised to tighten financial rules for elected officials and is using that promise to take aim at the Liberals.
A new Conservative government will bring change by introducing the Accountability Act 2.0, designed to remove the loopholes that Mr. Carney and the Liberals are using to avoid accountability for themselves and for their party. We will eliminate the lobbying loophole and require anyone who's acting as an advisor to government officials to declare themselves and register as a lobbyist whenever they are advising on matters that touch upon their financial interests or that of their company.
You know, it's not quite April 28th yet, but voting for the federal election has officially begun, at least for some post-secondary institutions across Canada. Now, here at the University of Lethbridge, advanced campus polling opened on Sunday, giving the chance for students, staff, and all the other eligible voters for the convenience to vote for the candidate in their home riding within campus. The U of L is the only post-secondary institution outside of Calgary and Edmonton in Alberta that is hosting what's dubbed as an external service point.
So we started yesterday and we had actually a lot more than we had expected. We had about 55 people, 60 people, and then we've already had quite a few just this morning and are expecting a lot more for the next couple of days, especially since it's exam season now. And so a lot of kids are coming into the university and writing exams. So I think it's nice that they can, they have to be here to write an exam and they can just pop in and partake in the electoral process.
It's really cool to see the wave of kids and of, I guess, now adults really caring about their futures, right? Really looking forward to how they can participate in society and make their lives better in the future and the lives, of course, of their family and of their children, right? And seeing kids and seeing young adults taking charge and being a part of that is so important. And so it's pretty cool to be able to support them in this way by having a polling station so close. That it just makes it so easy for them to come in and vote, right?
Voting at the U of L will continue until the 16th, each day from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Thanks to funding in Budget 2025, the University of Alberta is getting an injection of $100 million over the next 3 years. The university plans to use the funds to upgrade the 56-year-old Biological Sciences building into a STEM and Life Sciences Research and Education Lab. Now, STEM, of course, stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. And Advanced Education Minister Rajan Sawhney says along with the upgrades, the old Biological Sciences building will be given a new name.
Of funding will include major retrofitting and updating with complex utilities, controlled environments, and advanced safety features. The building will also get a new name, one that's indicative of the transformational work that will take place within these walls. When completed, the Life Sciences Innovation and Future Technologies, or LIFT, Center will become a dynamic and shared laboratory complex where researchers, students, and industry partners can work together to solve the most urgent problems of our time.
The project will be built in 5 phases and enable the U of A to double the number of laboratory seats from 1,600 to 3,200. The province has unveiled a new program that will help Albertans buy from local producers. The Buy Local program is being added to the Made in Alberta program that was launched in 2023. That program has seen roughly 800 products labeled as being made here. Agricultural Minister R.J. Sigurdson says with U.S. tariffs on everyone's mind and more shoppers looking for local products, this program will help them find them.
The awareness is a big part of this, and making sure that our farmers, ranchers, our processors here in the province are aware of the program and the benefit of that program. What we're seeing through this consumer shift is a growing demand for locally sourced products. So the Buy Local is two-tiered. Of course, we're promoting the Made in Alberta labeling program, but also supporting a Buy Local campaign and working with our grocery stores to be able to help them easily identify for consumers those products that are made in Canada and made in Alberta.
You can find more information at alberta.ca/buylocal. BC's Civil Liberties Association is intervening in a Supreme Court of Canada case that's set to begin tomorrow. The case is examining the constitutionality of Newfoundland and Labrador's COVID-19 pandemic travel restrictions. It started in 2022 when a Nova Scotia resident couldn't attend her mother's funeral in Newfoundland because she was denied an exemption to a public health order banning all non-residents from entering the province. The BC Association says it will argue that the charter protects permanent residents' right to move between and within provinces. Over the weekend, Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services responded to 2 neighboring residential fires in northwest Lethbridge on Saturday afternoon. 20 firefighters from 5 stations arrived to find 2 homes on the 1200 block of Pacific Circle West fully engulfed in flames. Crews battled to prevent the fires from reaching other neighboring homes through intense winds. No injuries have been reported. However, the damage is estimated at $1.75 million. Wow, look at that damage. That's your Forum Daily West report. I'm Naveen Day. Thanks so much for watching.